There comes a moment in almost every life, a moment so quiet, so ordinary, that you almost don't notice it. Nothing around you has changed. The same morning, the same room, the same routine, the same people. The world keeps moving exactly as it always has. But somewhere deep inside, something feels different. You wake up, yet you don't feel truly awake. You smile, yet something behind that smile feels distant. You continue checking off every responsibility, meeting every expectation, doing everything you're supposed to do. And still, there is an emptiness that refuses to leave. It isn't loud, it doesn't demand your attention. It simply stays, quietly, patiently, waiting. At first, you tell yourself you're just tired. Maybe you've been working too hard. Maybe you just need a vacation, a better schedule, more sleep, more motivation, more discipline. So you keep going. You work harder. You stay busier. You try to become more productive. You tell yourself that once you reach the next milestone, everything will finally make sense. But something strange begins to happen. The more you achieve, the less alive you feel. You start asking questions you never expected to ask. Why does success feel so empty? Why do I still feel lost, even after getting everything I once wanted? Why does my life look complete while my soul feels disconnected? These are difficult questions, questions most people spend years trying to avoid, because they force us to face a truth we rarely talk about. Sometimes, the greatest crisis in life doesn't begin with failure. It begins with success, with routine, with comfort, with becoming so skilled at surviving that we slowly forget how to truly live. And perhaps, if you are watching this today, you are standing at that very place, not because you were broken, not because you have failed, but because somewhere inside you, a quieter voice has finally become impossible to ignore. A voice asking, "Is this really the life I was meant to live?" The truth is, life rarely changes all at once. It changes quietly, one unnoticed day at a time. You don't suddenly lose yourself. You slowly drift away, a little more each morning, a little more each year, until one day, you realize you've become a stranger to the person you once dreamed of becoming. Not because you made one terrible decision, but because you made thousands of small ones. You chose what was expected instead of what was meaningful. You became responsible, but forgot to stay curious. You learned how to meet every deadline, but forgot how to listen to your own heart. Without realizing it, your calendar became full, while your soul slowly became empty. You kept moving, because stopping felt uncomfortable. Silence became something to escape, so you filled every empty space, with work, with notifications, with entertainment, with endless distractions, anything except being alone with your own thoughts. Because deep inside, you were afraid of what that silence might reveal. Yet silence has never been your enemy. Sometimes, silence is the only place where the truth still knows how to speak. Maybe that's why life keeps creating these quiet moments. Moments when everything slows down, moments when the noise finally fades, moments when you can no longer outrun yourself, not to punish you, but to invite you home. Home, not to a place, but to yourself. The version of you that existed long before the pressure, before the expectations, before the endless race to become someone worthy. Because the person you've been searching for has never truly disappeared. They've simply been waiting, patiently, quietly, beneath every layer you've built to survive. And perhaps this feeling of being lost isn't proof that you've failed. Perhaps it's the first sign that your soul is finally ready to be found. We often believe that losing ourselves happens in dramatic moments, a painful goodbye, a devastating failure, a life-changing tragedy. But more often, it happens quietly. It happens while answering one more email, while saying "I'm fine" for the 100th time, while postponing the dreams that once made your heart come alive. You tell yourself, "I'll come back to it someday, when life becomes less busy, when I have more money, when I feel more confident, when the timing is right." But someday has a strange way of never arriving. Days become months, months become years. And before you know it, you've built a life that looks successful from the outside, yet feels unfamiliar from within. The world celebrates what you've accomplished, but your soul quietly mourns what you've abandoned. The child who once imagined endless possibilities, the dreamer who believed anything was possible, the curious spirit who found joy in the smallest moments. They never disappeared. They simply became buried beneath expectations, because somewhere along the way, you learned that being accepted was more important than being authentic. You learned to fit in, to perform, to achieve, to become who everyone admired. But no one ever taught you how to remain connected to yourself. And perhaps that is why so many people feel exhausted today, not because they are doing too much, but because they are carrying a version of themselves that was never truly theirs. There is a quiet kind of exhaustion that sleep can never heal, because it isn't the body that is tired. It is the soul, asking to be remembered. And maybe the emptiness you've been trying so hard to escape isn't emptiness at all. Maybe it's simply the space where your true self has been waiting for you to finally come back. What if feeling lost was never the end of your story? What if it was the beginning? For years, you've been trying to silence that quiet voice inside you, the one that whispers, "There must be more than this." You dismissed it as overthinking. You buried it beneath busy days. You distracted yourself whenever it became too loud. But the voice never disappeared, because it wasn't trying to interrupt your life. It was trying to save it. The soul has a remarkable way of calling us back, not through force, not through fear, but through quiet dissatisfaction, through questions that refuse to leave, through moments of stillness that feel strangely uncomfortable. Those moments are not signs that something is wrong. They are invitations, an invitation to slow down, to listen, to remember. Perhaps life isn't asking you to become someone new. Perhaps it is asking you to stop pretending to be someone you're not. Healing doesn't begin when everything around you changes. It begins when you finally become honest with yourself, when you stop chasing the version of success that was handed to you, and begin discovering the version of life that truly belongs to you. That journey is rarely dramatic. Most of the time, it begins with something incredibly small: a quiet morning, a long walk, a deep breath, a sunset you actually pause to watch, a moment of silence that no longer feels empty, but peaceful. These moments may seem insignificant, yet they carry extraordinary power. Because every time you choose presence over distraction, every time you choose truth over performance, you take one small step back toward yourself. And perhaps coming home to yourself has never required a perfect plan, only the courage to take the very first step. The beautiful thing about coming home to yourself is that you don't have to know the entire journey. You only need to take the next honest step. So many of us believe that transformation must be dramatic, that one day we'll wake up completely different, more confident, more peaceful, more fulfilled. But life rarely works that way. Real transformation is almost invisible. It happens in ordinary moments. The moment you choose to put your phone down and watch the sunrise instead. The moment you take a slow walk without rushing to get somewhere. The moment you forgive yourself for not having everything figured out. The moment you stop asking, how far do I still have to go? And begin asking, how present can I be today? Healing isn't a destination waiting somewhere in the future. It is a relationship with your own heart. And like every meaningful relationship, it grows through attention, through patience, through kindness, not perfection. There will still be difficult mornings, days when old fears return, moments when doubt quietly whispers that nothing has changed. That is normal. Growth is rarely a straight line. Sometimes it feels like progress. Sometimes it feels like standing still. Sometimes it even feels like moving backward. But every season has its purpose. The tree does not question winter. The river does not resist its own current. The sunrise never rushes the night. Nature understands something we often forget. Everything unfolds when the time is right. Perhaps your life is asking for the same trust, not the trust that everything will be easy, but the trust that every step is shaping someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more deeply connected to who they truly are. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are simply growing in ways that cannot yet be seen. Maybe the life you've been searching for has never been somewhere else. Maybe it has been quietly waiting within you all along. We spend so much of our lives believing that peace is something to achieve, something to earn, something that exists just beyond the next accomplishment. But peace has never lived in the future. It has always existed in this moment, hidden beneath the noise, beneath the expectations, beneath the endless pressure to become someone more. Perhaps that is why the simplest moments often become the most unforgettable. A quiet sunrise, the sound of rain against a window, the gentle movement of leaves in the wind, a deep breath beneath an open sky. None of these moments ask you to become anyone else. They simply invite you to be here, to be fully alive, to notice what has always been there, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the rhythm of your own breathing, the quiet strength that has carried you through every difficult season of your life. You have survived days you once believed would break you. You have walked through darkness, even when you thought the light would never return. And somehow, you are still here. Maybe that deserves more gratitude than you have ever allowed yourself to feel. You don't need to have all the answers today. You don't need to know exactly where your life is going. You don't need to become a completely different person overnight. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply remain present, to breathe, to trust, to take one gentle step forward, and then another. Because healing is rarely found in giant leaps. It is found in quiet moments, repeated with love. One sunrise, one conversation, one deep breath, one honest choice at a time. And before you realize it, those small moments begin to shape an entirely new life, not because the world around you has changed, but because you have finally remembered who has been walking with you all along, your own soul. One day, without even realizing it, you'll notice something has changed, not the world, not your circumstances, you. The mornings will feel a little lighter. The silence will no longer feel so heavy. The questions that once haunted your mind will begin to lose their power, not because you've solved every problem, but because you've stopped fighting yourself. You'll begin to understand that healing was never about becoming perfect. It was about becoming whole, about gathering the scattered pieces of yourself and welcoming them home. The parts that felt afraid, the parts that felt unworthy, the dreams you abandoned, the child within you who only wanted to be seen. None of them needed to be fixed. They only needed to be loved. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson life quietly teaches us. We spend years searching for acceptance from the outside, while the one voice we've been longing to hear has always been our own. The moment you choose to meet yourself with compassion, Something extraordinary begins to happen. The weight you've been carrying becomes lighter. The fear begins to soften. Hope quietly returns, not all at once, but like the first light of dawn, almost unnoticed, yet impossible to stop. You begin to trust life again, not because life has become easier, but because you've discovered a quiet strength that no storm can take away, a strength that was never given to you by success, or recognition, or achievement. It was born the moment you decided to stop running and simply come home. Home to your own heart, home to your own truth, home to the person you were always meant to become. And perhaps that journey is the most beautiful adventure you will ever take.